the slightest touch to your face can override systemic stress responses. Your facial sensations are not just feeling. They are active regulation circuits, constantly talking directly to your brainstem nuclei. When we perceive texture or temperature on the trigeminal nerve branches, that input does not stay local. It travels deep into centers controlling how much adrenaline you pump out and whether you remain in a constant state of physiological alert. This connection reveals that basic somatosensory feedback serves as an essential governor for sympathetic tone itself. Understanding this pathway, the way cranial sensation inputs modulate basal autonomic arousal, is changing how we think about stability versus chronic hypervigilance, offering specific physical tools beyond generalized relaxation techniques. When we analyze these neural pathways closer, a finer principle emerges that consistent, low-intensity input fundamentally retrains our nervous systems. It is about coherence. Sensory regulation does not simply dampen stress responses. It provides the brain with stable data points to teach its autonomic function what basal stability feels like. Think of this constant cranial signaling as micro-adjustments on an extremely sensitive dial. By modulating these afferent streams, we can actually fine-tune sympathetic outflow over time, shifting our baseline arousal state downwards. This process builds genuine autonomic flexibility, making the system less brittle and more resilient to unavoidable stressors throughout your day. But what if that same mechanism we discussed earlier is actually involved in chronic pathology? Instead of simply building flexibility, some neurophysiological models suggest sustained neural sensitization creates a vicious cycle. When your cranial nerves become chronically overstimulated, they send constant signals to brainstem regulatory centers. This does not just increase adrenaline. It drives sympathetic hyperarousal into the background, keeping the system perpetually primed for fight or flight without an external threat. So why would evolution pay that metabolic cost? There is a deeper architecture at play here, regulating basal internal energetic coherence. And we are only scratching the surface of how these afferent pathways truly dictate our state of constant readiness versus deep calm. The relationship between facial sensation input and basal sympathetic tone is far more metabolic than previously understood. It does not just control alertness. It modulates cellular stress at a fundamental level. When the trigeminal pathway becomes dysregulated through chronic inputs, it can initiate neuroinflammatory cascades within brainstem nuclei that sustain systemic distress signals for what some studies suggest might be over 300 million cycles per day across your entire cranial network. This constant inflammatory priming forces mitochondria into inefficient metabolic states. The stability we seek is not just nervous system peace. It is mitochondrial efficiency on a grand scale, dictating how well your body defends itself against aging and stress simultaneously. We need to see what controlling that signal stream can actually change in the cellular machinery itself. Chronic overstimulation of these cranial pathways leads to far more systemic consequences than just elevated alertness. It compromises your ability to maintain stable hormone levels. If the brainstem perceives a constant signal of threat, even if none exists externally, the entire HPA axis begins operating in perpetual overdrive. This is why maintaining neural coherence is not merely about feeling calm. It directly supports endocrine resilience against burnout and metabolic collapse later on. We must address how this specific input stream dictates the efficiency of your systemic stress response machinery. The precise way these afferent inputs can reset those long-term regulatory set points is what changes everything we know about sustained nervous system stability. The critical realization here moves beyond simply managing sympathetic outflow or stabilizing hormone levels. It points toward active, measurable neuroplastic restructuring within your central nervous system's most ancient regulatory centers. Consistent, predictable somatosensory input does not merely adjust the volume knob of stress. It physically retrains and recalibrates the entire internal mapping architecture that defines safe versus threat. This is a profound shift from chemical feedback to sensory circuit rewriting at the brainstem level. By controlling this specific afferent data stream, the information traveling up the trigeminal pathways, we are not just influencing tone, we are altering how your body learns and interprets stability itself. jmthomasofficial.com explores what that means for longevity science. When we synthesize all these data points into one conclusion, the picture becomes strikingly clear. This is not simply about calming nerves. It is about bioengineering your fundamental state of being. You do not need generalized meditation to shift your autonomic set point. The specific takeaway from this research is simple. You must actively engage targeted somatosensory pathways known for their deep cranial afferent input, using controlled pressure or temperature shifts on facial regions as a mechanism. These actions are how we physically command the brainstem to recalibrate its basal sympathetic tone and improve mitochondrial efficiency in systemic stress response. If you want to examine the full research archive linking these ancient circuits to modern longevity science, find jmthomasofficial.com. The profound lesson here shifts how we view biological control itself. This entire system is not merely a switch for stress. It acts as an information highway dictating fundamental cellular efficiency across your body, starting with mitochondria function and systemic resilience against aging signals. We have established that specific, controlled cranial input is the physical mechanism to rewrite those ancient regulatory set points within the brainstem. You are not just managing symptoms anymore. You are actively calibrating the hardware of your autonomic state. To grasp the full scope of this intersection between deep somatic afferents and long-term longevity science, visit jmthomasofficial.com.